few years ago, I worked with Bruce Willis on a movie called Cop Out, and it didn't go great at all. And, you know, with years to reflect, I realized that was probably my fault as well. Like, I expected way too much of this guy, hero worshipped him and shit like that. Maybe I scared him as a creepy fan, who knows? But the whole experience, like I've talked about places on podcasts, I wrote about it in a book and shit. At the end of the chapter dedicated to him, I wrote, "Yippee-ki-yay, movie fucker." So, you know, obviously, I got some feelings on the subject and shit like that. Hadn't heard from him since that time, since we made the movie. And then one day, I was working on a script, and it was right before there was gonna be a Writers Guild strike, so everybody was trying to go fast in case the strike happened, because then you're not allowed to write or some such shit. So I was trying to beat a deadline, and my phone rang, my cell phone. I didn't recognize the number, so I didn't answer it. And then it rang again, same number, and I'm like, oh shit, like this must be serious. I don't know who it is, but they're trying to get me again. I'll fucking answer it. So I answered the phone, I was like, hello? And he goes, is Kevin there? And I go, this Kevin, who's this? And he goes, Kev, it's Bruno. And I go, who? Because I didn't know. And he goes, it's Bruno. And I go, who? And he goes, is this Kevin Smith? I said, yeah. He goes, it's Bruce Willis, man. And I was like, hey, boss, how are you? Because I'm like, oh my God, this is my day of reckoning. I've been talking about this guy for years, man, and finally he heard it. And he's calling up to be like, you piece of shit, meet me outside, or something like that. So I was like, hey, how are you? He's like, good, man, good. I'm just up here in upstate New York on the farm, man. I got a farm, so I'm up here. I was like, oh, really? What are you up to up there? He goes, you know, man, drinking wine, killing bees. I was like, bees, big problem there? He's like, yeah, man, they're bastards, these bees, but I kill them all. I was like, I bet they all die hard, don't they? He liked that, he chuckled and shit. I hadn't heard from this guy, like, since maybe the premiere of the movie and stuff like that. So it had been fucking years, and you know, nothing I'd said about him over the years had been all that pleasant or positive and shit. So I'm waiting, I'm like, what's this call about and stuff? And he just starts talking. He's like, how you doing? I was like, I'm good, man, how are you? He's like, well, I'm good, the family's good. Let me tell you about my daughters. And he just starts listing his kids and how everyone's doing and shit. And you know, I know some of them not in real life, but just from reading about them over the years and shit. I was like, oh, right on, man, right on. And the whole time I'm like, is this really fucking Bruce Willis? Because one of my friends does impressions for a living. Like, my friend Ralph Garman's really good at voices, so maybe Ralph's calling me up to be like, it's Bruce Willis. You know. So I get him to keep talking because I want to see if he knows anything about Bruce Willis's life. And he seems to know a bit about the kids and stuff, but he could have read that on the internet and shit. I said, what are you working on right now? He's like, oh, I just finished up Death Wish. I said, oh, right on, man, with Eli. I said, how'd it go? He goes, I took it seriously. And right then and there, I was like, this does sound like Willis. So he's talking more and shit like that. I knew, like, at one point, there were two things pushed me over the edge where I realized it really was Bruce Willis, man. One was when he was talking about his kids, he then starts talking about my kid, but he goes, so how's Rose doing? Because he doesn't know my kid's fucking name at all and shit. And he never did when she was little and shit. So when he said Rose, I was like, oh my God, that's deep cuts, man. Like, he must really. So I was like, Rose is good, man. She's real fucking good. And then the last thing he said, which tripped my wire, was he got a best friend, Stephen Eads, who is with him, his assistant, his best friend in life and stuff like that. He saw a picture recently of Bruce Willis dressed as one of the Shining twins with an older gentleman. That was Stephen Eads, his lifelong friend and assistant. So at one point, Bruce goes, hey man, so me and Stephen Eads were just hanging out. And I was like, Stephen Eads? I said, this is fucking Bruce Willis. And he goes, yeah, man, what'd you think? I was like, I don't know. I haven't heard from you in a long time and shit. It's just kind of weird. He goes, no, I just want to talk, man. I just want to hang out and bullshit and stuff. And I was like, okay. And I'm listening to him talking. He's just being friendly. It's weird. It's almost like Cop Out never happened. It's like the call predates Cop Out. Like before we had that relationship, like after we had done Live Free or Die Hard, and I was in that scene and shit, he loved me and whatnot, but then when we did Cop Out, it all went away. So it was almost like a trip back in time, and I was so wigged out by it. And then all of a sudden he goes, hey, Kev, somebody's beeping through the other line, man. Would you mind holding? I was like, yeah, man, you can go. Don't worry. He goes, no, I don't want to go, man. Don't hang up. You hold on. You still there? And I was like, I am. It was like that fucking high school thing where you're like, you hang up first. No, you hang up. I was like, yeah, no, I'll hold on and shit like that. He goes, hold on. And you hear him click over and shit. And I was in my office. I raced down the hallway to my bedroom and I fucking whip open the door because I can't wait to tell my wife and shit like that. And so I'm just about to tell her when I open the door, but then he comes back on the phone. He goes, Kev, you there? And I was like, hey man, I'm here. And he goes, okay, I'm done with that. So anyway, man, let me tell you about the bees. And he goes back to telling me his story. So I fucking go over to my wife's desk because she's looking at me like this. I go over to the desk and I'm like, give me a pen, like with my hand and shit. I'm like, and she gives me a pen. I grab a piece of paper and I write, Bruce Willis, 20 minutes, because he's been on the fucking phone now for 20 minutes and I'm trying to communicate this to my wife. It's shocking. I turn the paper around, she reads it. She immediately gets up and starts cleaning the fucking house. Now, mind you, this is something she never fucking does. So I'm on the phone with him rambling at me, watching her. Like, all of it was fucking strange. Like, she's picking up plates and putting them in the closet and fucking moving shit I've never seen get moved before. When I got off the phone, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? She's like, Bruce Willis is gonna be here in 20 minutes. And I was like, no, he's not. She's like, that's what you wrote. I was like, no, I wrote that Bruce Willis has been on the phone, I meant, for 20 minutes. She goes, that's the worst fucking code I've ever seen. So I was on the phone with him still, man, before I got off and shit like that, and the conversation started tapering off, and it was incredibly pleasant. He was a different person altogether than the guy that I fucking remembered and shit like that. So at the end, he was like, you know what, Kev, I'm gonna get going, but soon I'm gonna head out west, see my West Coast family, man. So me and Eads, man, we wanna roll up on you and see you. Where do you live? And I was like, oh, fucking, yeah, I live in the Hollywood Hills, man. And he goes, what's your address? And I had to think whether I wanted to give it to him or not. No, I was like, I did make 2 movies with him and shit, but like, what if he just shows up, ding dong, you piece of shit, and starts beating me up? So finally, I was like, all right, I guess I'll give it to him, and I gave him the fucking address and stuff like that. And he goes, all right, man, so we're gonna be out there in 2 weeks, man. I'm gonna blow you up, we're gonna hang out. I said, okay. And he goes, well, it's been good talking to you. I said, you know what, honestly, boss, it's been really nice talking to you, man. Thanks for calling. And he goes, oh, thanks for picking up. And I said, before you go, man, I said, this has been lovely, but can I just ask you one question without making you mad? And he goes, yeah, what's up? And I said, were you recently visited by 3 ghosts in the night? He thought that was funny, man. He goes, no, why? And he goes, why? I just haven't spoken to you in years. He goes, well, I was looking through some old pictures. I saw a picture of you, felt like, hey, man, I want to talk to him. So I called you up. I said, feel free to do that anytime you want in the future. He goes, I'm going to see you in 2 weeks at your house. I said, all right, man, I'll see you then. And I hung up and shit like that. It was delightful. That happened 6 months ago. He never fucking showed up. So I'm not quite sure what the real story was, like at the end of the day, but I just assume he was sitting around his farm, like bored as shit, going like, who can I really fuck with today?